Ask yourself, when someone insults you, disrespects you, or cuts you off in traffic, what is your first reaction? Is it anger? Is it the burning need to prove them wrong, to have the last word? If so, you are handing over the keys to your peace and your power every single day. This book is a wake-up call. True power isn't in the reaction, it's in the disciplined space between the event and your response. The most unstoppable people on this planet have mastered one single art, the power of not reacting. This isn't about being a doormat. This is about becoming an immovable fortress. If you listen to this to the end, you will never be manipulated, shaken, or controlled by anyone ever again. Chapter 1. The reaction trap is a prison of your own making. Let's get something straight right now. You are not free. I know you think you are. I know you wake up, drink your coffee, go to work, and believe you are an autonomous human being making decisions. But you are not free. You are a puppet. And the strings are pulled by other people's behavior. Every time someone cuts you off in traffic, you jerk like a marionette. Every time your boss sends a passive-aggressive email, your stomach drops, and your entire evening is destroyed. Every time your partner uses that specific tone of voice, you feel the anger volcano erupt in your chest before you can even think. That is not freedom. That is slavery. That is the reaction trap. And the first thing you must swallow, and it's a bitter pill, is that the prison is of your own making. The lock is on the inside, and you are the one turning the key every single time you choose to react. Let's talk about what's happening inside that skull of yours. There is a tiny almond-shaped piece of biology in your brain called the amygdala. This is your security guard. Millions of years ago, this security guard saved your ancestors' lives. When a saber-toothed tiger appeared, the amygdala didn't hold a committee meeting. It didn't ask for nuance. It hit a switch: fight, flight, or freeze. Instantly, blood rushes from your rational brain to your limbs. Cortisol floods your system. You become chemically stupid. And this was perfect for the savannah. It is a disaster for the modern world. Here is the key. That is the key you must burn into your mind. The amygdala cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and an ego threat. It cannot distinguish between a tiger about to eat you and an email that questions your competence. Read that again in your mind. The biological reaction is identical. So when you read that email from a colleague that says, "Let's circle back on this, I have some concerns about your report," your ancient wiring doesn't see text on a screen. It sees a predator lunging from the bushes. Your blood pressure spikes. Your pupils dilate. Rational thought goes offline. And in that moment of hijack, you do not act. You react. You fire off a defensive reply. You start drafting a list of excuses. You begin mentally assassinating that colleague's character for the next 4 hours. You have lost yourself. You are no longer the CEO of your own mind. The amygdala is running the company into the ground. You have a choice. Right now, you believe you don't have a choice. You believe the reaction is instantaneous, that it happens so fast there is no stopping it. That is a lie you tell yourself to justify your emotional vomit. The truth is, lashing out is not a display of power. That is the great illusion we must shatter today. We are taught that if someone disrespects us, the only honorable response is immediate retaliation. You must clap back. You must stand up for yourself. That is primitive animal thinking. The bull sees the red cape and charges. The bull is powerful, but the matador is smarter. The matador simply moves his wrist a single inch. The bull exhausts itself, creates a spectacle, and then dies. Don't be the bull. Don't let the algorithm, the boss, or the ungrateful family member be your matador. They flick a piece of red cloth, and you snort and charge directly into their trap. Doing that doesn't prove you have a spine. It proves you have no self-control. It is a weakness, dressed up as strength. Let's analyze the real-world poison sting, the email that ruins your day. We have all lived this. It's 10:32 a.m. You open an email. The subject line is ambiguous. The body contains a single, critical sentence. No smiley face. No exclamation points. Just a cold, sharp critique. You read it. The physical sensation lands in your body. Maybe your chest tightens. Maybe your jaw clenches. The event of actually reading the email took 5 seconds. The sentence is physically over. The photons have hit your retina, and the signal has been processed. That is the event. The event is finished. But you are just getting started. You close the laptop. You go to the kitchen, but you are not thinking about lunch. You are having an imaginary argument with the sender. You craft a counterattack in your head. You tell your wife about it when you get home. You lie in bed at 11 p.m., replaying the sentence, adding new layers of meaning to it. He must think I'm incompetent. She is trying to get me fired. They are plotting against me. The person who sent that email? They wrote it in 15 seconds, hit send, and forgot about it. They are coaching their kids' soccer practice. They are watching Netflix. They are sleeping peacefully. And you? You have chemically poisoned your bloodstream with cortisol for 14 hours. You have aged yourself. You have broken down your immune system. You have ruined the only finite resource you have, your present moment. Over what? Over 5 seconds of text. You are doing damage to yourself. This is the central anchor of this entire book, and if you forget everything else, you must remember this. If the event is over and you are still suffering, the problem is no longer the event. The problem is your internal replay button. You are the one keeping the wound fresh. You keep poking it with the stick of your memory. No one is in the room with you right now. The email is not bouncing around your skull. It's just you sitting there, manufacturing pain where there is no objective danger. You are drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's not rational. That's a prison mindset. But you need to see the cage bars clearly. You think you are the righteous victim of these feelings. You think the anger is happening to you. Stop it. That's the victim speaking. You have a choice in the moment of interpretation. This is what the Stoics called the discipline of assent. An impression arises. This email is an attack. That is your initial, automatic impression. The untrained mind immediately nods its head violently and says, "Yes, it's an attack. Assemble the troops." The trained mind stops. The trained mind looks at the impression like a bouncer at a club door. It pauses and says, "Hold on. I'm not sure you're allowed in here. Show me your ID. Are you certain this is an attack? Are you sure this isn't just poorly worded feedback? Are you sure this isn't a projection of your own insecurity?" That pause, that single, thin slice of time between the stimulus and the response, that is the space of your liberation. Expand that space, and you break out of the prison. You don't need their permission. Read that again. You don't need their permission to be calm. You are waiting for an apology that may never come. You are waiting for the world to treat you fairly. You are waiting for validation before you allow yourself to feel a sense of inner peace. That is a losing game. The world is not going to change its nature. People are going to be difficult. They are going to be thoughtless, cruel, and stupid. Expecting reality to suddenly become conflict-free so that you can finally be relaxed is the strategy of a fool. The master understands that inner stillness is not contingent on a quiet external world. External calm is a luxury. Internal calm is a discipline. It's not about them calming down. It's about you deciding that their chaos will not become your chaos. That's the key. Stop proving. This is a disease. The urge to react is often the urge to prove that you are right. You want to prove you are smart. You want to prove you are worthy. You want to prove you are not a pushover. But when you react to the nail, you confirm you are the hammer. You confirm that they hit a nerve. You confirm that their opinion has power over you. A self-contained emperor sitting on a throne does not need to stand up and scream to prove he is the emperor. He simply remains seated. He is immovable. You cannot argue someone into respecting you. You command respect when your lack of reaction demonstrates that their attack was so futile, so utterly insignificant, that it didn't even register on your Richter scale. From this moment forward, I want you to start viewing your high-stress reactions not as a noble defense mechanism, but as a self-imposed shackle. Each time you find yourself holding onto a grudge, rereading a text, or constructing a fantasy argument in the shower, I want you to stop mid-thought and say this out loud: I am the warden, and I am the prisoner. I am holding the key. I choose to drop the key. Because you are the only one who can lock yourself up. No one can enter your mind without your consent. The email cannot jump off the screen and punch you. The words cannot corrode your soul unless you grant them corrosive properties. You assign the meaning. And you always have the radical power to strip the meaning away. So we have peeled back the first layer. We have looked at the animal brain, the poison bloodstream, and the phantom torture chamber of the mind. The reaction trap is not a metaphor. It is a physiological and psychological fact. The good news? If the prison is in your mind, you have the keys. The release starts with recognizing that you are in the cage. You now know you are the one who picks up the phone, the text, the memory, and beats yourself over the head with it. That awareness is the first crack of light in a dark room. You have seen the trap. You know how it snaps shut. But knowledge is not enough. You can see a bear trap, but if you step in it anyway, you're still caught. In the next chapter, we are going to talk about the high-value currency you are spending every time you step into that trap. We are going to talk about where your life force is leaking, and why you must go completely bankrupt on outrage so you can finally become rich in clarity. You've realized the prison is self-made. Now, let's realize who you've been paying rent to. Chapter 2, The Currency of Attention, Why You Must Go Broke to Get Rich. You woke up this morning with a finite deposit in your bank account. It's a bank account you can't see, but it's more valuable than your 401k, your savings, or your cryptocurrency. It is the currency of your attention. And right now, you are hemorrhaging it. You are bleeding it out on the pavement, throwing it at people who don't even know your name, and wondering why you have nothing left for yourself. If Chapter 1 was about realizing the prison is self-made, this chapter is about realizing you've been paying an emotional mortgage on that prison cell. And the interest rate is your life force. Let's define this currency. Attention is not just focus. Attention is the very substance of your conscious experience. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Where your energy flows, your life goes. If you give a trivial insult 3 hours of your mental replay, you haven't just lost time. You have spent 3 hours of your irreplaceable life on that insult. You have traded the gold of your existence for trash. And the person who insulted you? They made a deposit. You made a withdrawal. They gained real estate in your head, and you paid the tax. Do not pay the toll. The toll is your tranquility. Every single time you react, you stop at a mental toll booth, hand over your peace of mind, and receive absolutely nothing in return. You have a choice. Right now, you believe you are a victim of the attention economy. You think the news cycle, the social media feed, and the family drama happened to you. That's a passive, weak position. The Stoic truth is that you have complete sovereignty over where you place your mental gaze. The ancient Stoics had a concept called provoked, the attitude of vigilant attention to one's own mind. They understood that the unguarded mind is a city with the gates thrown open, allowing any invading army of thoughts to march right in and set up camp. You wouldn't leave the front door of your house wide open with a sign saying, "Rob me." But you do it with your mind every time you instinctively reach for your phone in a moment of boredom or emotional discomfort. That's the key. You reach for the stimulus to avoid sitting with yourself, and in doing so, you pay the toll. Let's look at the grandest thief of our era, the outrage machine. We are going to analyze social media because it is the purest laboratory of the reaction trap. The algorithm is designed specifically to hijack your amygdala. It shows you content calculated to make you furious, self-righteous, or terrified. Why? Because an emotionally hijacked human being is an engaged human being. When you watch that video and feel the rage boil, you are chemically addicted. You type a furious comment. You spend the next hour defending it against strangers. Congratulations. You just handed a multi-billion-dollar corporation your most precious asset, your attention, for free. You made them richer and yourself poorer. You depleted your mental energy for the cause of being right in front of an audience of ghosts. That is an unequal transaction. That is stupid. And you must stop calling it staying informed or speaking truth. It's not. It's emotional self-harm, dressed up as engagement. The cost of this is massive, and you don't feel the wound until it's too late. The silent cost is that you have no bandwidth left for the deep, difficult, beautiful work of building your actual life. The painter who is outraged online cannot paint. An entrepreneur arguing with a hater cannot innovate. The parent who is stressed about political chaos over there cannot be present with the child who is right here. You only have so many units of attention in a single day. Every unit you spend on low-value noise is a unit stolen from your family, your art, your sleep, and your peace. You are not multitasking by staying outraged all day. You are starved. You are a depleted resource. You are trying to build an empire, raise a family, and master a craft with a brain that is already exhausted from fighting 1,000 irrelevant battles before 9 a.m. That is the tragedy of the reaction trap. It doesn't just hurt you in the moment. It steals the future version of you who might have achieved greatness. So, how do you stop the bleeding? You make a radical decision. You decide to go broke on outrage so you can get rich in clarity. Going broke means you no longer have any emotional reaction to offer the chaos merchants. When they dangle the bait, you look at it with the detachment of a billionaire looking at a penny on the sidewalk. It's not worth the energy to bend down and pick it up. You let it lie there. You let them scream into the void. You do not have to buy a ticket to their circus. This is the discipline of curation. You curate your mental inputs like a gallerist curating a masterpiece collection. If a piece of information does not educate you, deeply move you, or directly relate to your immediate sphere of control, it is not allowed inside the gallery. You are not a public trash can for the world's chaos. You are a private temple. Here is the practical, behavioral instruction. Tomorrow morning, before you pick up your phone, I want you to sit in a chair for 5 minutes and do nothing. No music. No podcast. No news. Just sit. Feel the itch. That itch, that restless urge to reach for the device, is the feeling of being a slave. That itch is the proof that you are addicted to the currency drain. Sit with it. Master it. You don't need their permission to be uninformed about the latest disaster that you cannot change anyway. It's not about being ignorant, it's about being selective. A wise man knows everything about the few things that matter and nothing about the many things that don't. The person who brags about being up to date on every crisis is often the one most behind on their own life. Let the inner fortress principle settle here. The outside world is a storm of information, much of it tailored to trigger you. But a storm cannot break a mountain. It can only howl around it. The mountain doesn't try to block the wind or argue with the rain. The mountain simply is. When you are the mountain, the notification buzzes, the headline screams, the colleague gossips, and you watch it all as if from a great height. The energy is there, but it is not entering you. You are sealed. You are sovereign. So we now understand the currency. We understand that every time we react, we are writing a check from an account that funds our deepest potential. Going broke on outrage is not a passive retreat, it is an aggressive, active protection of your destiny. You must become miserly with your attention. Hoard it. Protect it. Spend it only on what makes you undeniably stronger. But the question remains, how do you do this in the heat of the moment when the insult is fresh and the blood is hot? You are not reacting to the world itself. You are reacting to a story you made up about the world. The real problem isn't the thief at the door. The real problem is the interpreter inside your head who keeps telling you the thief is the one who defines your worth. Let's go deeper. Let's dismantle the story engine entirely. Chapter 3. The Judgment Gap. You are horrible at reading minds. Let's perform an autopsy on a reaction. A colleague walks past you in the hallway. They don't say hello. They look right through you. Immediately, your stomach drops. A lightning bolt of anxiety and anger hits. You think, what a rude, arrogant person. They are deliberately ignoring me. They must be angry about the meeting yesterday. They are playing political games. They disrespected me. Now, let's look at the reality of that situation. The colleague's mother was just diagnosed with a terminal illness. They were walking to their car to go to the hospital. They were so lost in a fog of grief and terror that they didn't even see the hallway. They didn't see you. They didn't see anyone. They were blind with pain. See the problem? In the first scenario, you are a victim of a grand conspiracy of disrespect. In the second scenario, nothing happened to you at all. The external event was identical. A person walked by without speaking. The only difference was the story you told yourself. This gap, between the raw event and the story you attach to it, is called the judgment gap. And in that gap lies either your hell or your liberation. You are horrible at reading minds. You are even worse at reading reality. You don't see the world. You see a projection of your own insecurities, and you mistake that projection for the truth. The foundational Stoic principle here comes from Epictetus, and if you tattoo nothing else on your soul, tattoo this: men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. The thing itself is neutral. The insult is a vibration in the air. The email is pixels on a screen. The cold shoulder is just the absence of words. These are naked realities. They have no inherent meaning. You do not experience reality directly. You experience reality filtered through a layer of instant, often catastrophically wrong judgment. You don't see the snake, you just feel the rope and scream. Your reaction is not to the rope. Your reaction is to the snake you invented and then instantly believed in. That's the key. The damage isn't done by them. The damage is done by an internal narrative that operates on default settings, and those settings are paranoid, self-centered, and desperately insecure. You have a choice in how you interpret, but most people forfeit that choice before they even know it exists. Shakespeare understood this. Hamlet, the ultimate tragic hero, says, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Hamlet is a case study in the judgment gap. His uncle killed his father. That is the event. A horrific reality. But Hamlet then spends 5 acts doing nothing but reacting to the story in his own head. He drives himself into madness, destroys Ophelia, kills Polonius, and ultimately engineers a bloodbath, all because he can't bridge the gap between the fact of the murder and the action of revenge. He is trapped in the gap. He fills the gap with ghost stories, self-loathing, and paranoia. He is the ultimate example of a brilliant mind destroyed by its inability to stop judging and start seeing. In your daily life, the stakes are lower, but the mechanism remains the same. This is what we call the law of assumed intent. You assume malicious intent behind every action that causes you discomfort. The slow driver isn't elderly and terrified. They are doing it to spite you. The quiet partner isn't tired. They are engaged in emotional warfare. The boss who gave critical feedback isn't trying to improve the project. They are trying to humiliate you. Notice how it's always about you. You are the star of a movie that no one else knows is being filmed. You think everyone is thinking about you, judging you, plotting against you. The shocking truth? They aren't. They are thinking about themselves, just like you are. You are a background extra in the movie of their life, yet you interpret every scene as if you are the lead actor under a spotlight. That is cognitive distortion of the highest order. To close the judgment gap, you must adopt a brutal rational discipline. You must separate the fabrication from the fact. When the reaction begins to rise, that hot rush of offense, you halt. You freeze the frame. You grab a mental scalpel, and you perform surgery. You ask, what are the verifiable facts here, stripped of my emotional interpretation? The fact: the email contains a question about a budget line item. The fabrication: he thinks I'm incompetent and is building a case to fire me. See the distance between those two statements? That distance is where you live or die. If you live in the fabrication, you send an angry email, damage your reputation, lose sleep, and spike your blood pressure. If you live in the fact, you just answer the question about the budget line item. One path is war. The other path is on Tuesday. You have a choice. It's not about the event, it's about your discipline in interpretation. This is where the repetition must become ritual. When you feel the emotional fire, you say to yourself, this is a sound wave. This is pixels. This is a person walking by. I am adding the rest. I am the director of this horror movie. I can cut the scene. You don't need their permission to stop assigning malice. You assign benevolence first. Maybe they are in pain. Maybe I misheard. Maybe there's a context I don't see. This isn't being naive. This is being intelligent. This is the mindset of a surgeon who sees a strange mass and doesn't instantly scream cancer, but instead runs a biopsy. You run a reality biopsy. You test the story. You look at the evidence. And if the evidence of malicious intent isn't absolutely airtight, and it almost never is, you throw the story in the trash. Stop being a meaning-making machine. You are addicted to meaning because chaos is scary. A random, meaningless world where people do careless things is terrifying because it means you can't control it. So you invent a story where it's all intentional, because if it's intentional, you can fight it, you can predict it, you can reason with it. But that's the trap. You are manufacturing enemies to feel a false sense of control. That certainty you feel when you label someone a villain, that's a dopamine hit. It feels good to be self-righteous. It's a sugar high, and it rots your soul. Let go of the story. Embrace the chaos of neutral reality. Look at the action, stripped of your narrative. Look at the text, stripped of the tone you invented. It's not a personal attack, it's just a person behaving badly, or maybe just behaving normally, and you are too sensitive to see it. The gap between the fact and your emotional fire is where your freedom lives. Expand that gap. Widen it into a vast canyon. A thought arises, they disrespected me. You don't grab it. You let it sit there in the gap, suspended. You inspect it from a distance. Is that true, though? Can I be certain? What is the exact evidence, measured in a court of law? By the time you've asked the question, the thought has usually lost its electrical charge. It dissolves. It is a phantom that cannot survive the light of inquiry. You are starving the reaction by refusing to feed it a storyline. This is the architecture of peace. The event happens. The gap opens. You, the observer, stand in the gap and choose. You choose the story that leads to action and freedom, or you choose the story that leads to fury and slavery. The world outside is just a cascade of sensory data. You are the screenwriter. You are the one who types in the dialogue of doom or the silence of acceptance. So now we understand that the facts don't wound us. The fiction we write about the facts wounds us. But understanding this is not enough. What do you do in the space when the story is still screaming in your ear? When you are face to face with the barbarian at the gate, how do you weaponize peace? There is a tool mightier than the sword, and it is the one you are most terrified of using. It is the void. It is the dead air. It is strategic silence. The story is a lie. Now, let's learn how to say nothing and win everything. Chapter 4: Strategic Silence. Why saying nothing is the loudest statement. We have been conditioned to believe that silence is surrender. From the playground to the boardroom, we are taught that if you don't answer back, you lose. If they throw a verbal punch, you must throw two back. If they make an accusation, you must defend yourself with a 10-page essay. This is the philosophy of the weak. This is the rattling of a rusty cage. The Stoic knows the deepest secret of human dynamics. Strategic silence is not passive. It is an aggressive, irreducible act of dominance. Saying nothing is the loudest, most devastating statement you can ever make. Why? Because human beings are meaning-making machines, as we learned in the last chapter. When you are silent, you create a void. And the human psyche abhors a vacuum. When you don't fill the space with defensive words, the other person is forced to fill it with their own thoughts. They are forced to sit in the uncomfortable echo of their own words. They throw the spear, and they expect to hear the sound of impact, your scream, your anger, your excuse. But when you are silent, the spear flies into a dark, silent abyss. There is no sound. There is no impact. They are left holding their own aggression, suddenly feeling very exposed. You have returned their energy to the sender, unopened. That is power. You have a choice. You can be the reactor, who spills their emotional guts everywhere and feels momentarily relieved but ultimately empty. Or you can be the observer who understands the tactical power of the pause. Let's look at high-stakes environments to see this in action. Watch a Navy SEAL in a hostage negotiation simulation. Watch a Zen master handling a disrespectful student. They don't rush to fill the air. They pause. The pause is heavy. The pause creates a gravitational field. It communicates, I am not controlled by your timeline. Your words do not emotionally hijack me. I am operating from a place you cannot reach. That pause, that refusal to mirror the chaos, instantly shifts the balance of power. The loudest person in the room is almost always the weakest. The quietest person is the one being listened to. That's the key. It's not about being heard, it's about being immovable. Let's talk about the void of discomfort. This is an advanced psychological technique. When someone insults you or makes an unreasonable demand, your instinct is to jump in and mitigate the awkwardness. Well, maybe I could, let me explain. You misunderstood my intention. Stop. Let the discomfort hang in the air. Let it be awkward. That awkwardness is not yours to fix, it is theirs. They created it. By trying to soothe it, you are doing the emotional labor for the person who attacked you. You are apologizing for their aggression. When you use strategic silence, the discomfort remains squarely on their side of the table. They start to backpedal. They start to soften. They say things like, well, I just mean. Or maybe that came out wrong. You haven't moved an inch, and they have retreated. You haven't said a word, and you have won the negotiation. You don't need their permission to be still. You are waiting for a pause in their tirade to set the record straight. But the record doesn't need to be set. Truth does not require a defender. A lie about you, if you don't engage with it, remains a problem for the liar. The moment you engage with a lie, you give it oxygen. You bring it into the ring and make it a legitimate opponent. If someone says, you're an arrogant fool, and you reply, no, I'm not, here's a list of my humble actions, what have you just done? You have validated the premise that their opinion matters. You have knelt to be knighted by a fool. A king does not negotiate with hecklers. The king remains silent. The king's silence implies that the heckler is so far beneath his notice that he is not even an insect. He is there. You cannot quote me if I say nothing. You cannot argue with a ghost. In the vacuum of your silence, their weakness is the only sound that remains. This is not about suppressing your voice. This is about elevating your voice from a tool of precision to a weapon of mass destruction. The right words, spoken at the right time, carry immense weight. But a person who speaks constantly, who reacts to every single stimulus, dilutes their words to a meaningless hum. They become background noise. If you want your words to hit with the force of a sledgehammer, you must be silent long enough for people to lean in. When a quiet person speaks, the room listens. When a reactive person speaks, the room endures. You want to be the signal, not the noise. You cultivate the scarcity of your own verbal energy. You are not entitled to my reaction. That phrase should be your mantra. You are not entitled to my reaction. Their behavior, their bait, does not compel your response. You are the gatekeeper. Here is the practical behavioral instruction for this week. The next time you are in a heated discussion, I want you to consciously insert a 3-second pause before you reply. It will feel like an eternity. Your heart will hammer. Your ego will scream, "Say something now. You're looking foolish." Fight back. Do not listen. Count. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Then, if you still choose to speak, speak. But I guarantee you, after 3 seconds, 90% of what you are about to say will seem irrelevant or purely destructive. You will often find that the wisest reply is simply a quiet, calm, "I hear you," and then nothing else. No agreement. Not dissent. Just a receipt of sound waves. You received the data, and you chose not to engage. That is the ultimate immunity. The silence is a fortress wall. But silence alone can be a strain if the enemy is already inside the gates. What if the attack isn't just a one-time event, but a constant drumming pressure from the outside world? You need to construct an architecture that doesn't just mute the noise, but makes you impervious to it. You need to move from the tactical use of silence to the structural building of the fortress. You have weaponized the void. Now, let's pour the concrete and install the steel gates. Chapter 5. The Fortress Within, Building a Boundary That Cannot Be Breached. We are now moving from tactics to architecture. The pause is a tactic. The silence is a weapon. But if you don't have a structure inside your own mind where your peace lives permanently, you will still exhaust yourself just trying to dodge the bullets. You must build the fortress within. This is not a physical place. It is an internal boundary system so absolute and impermeable that no external event can breach it without your explicit permission. You must become a sovereign state with a zero-tolerance border policy for emotional invaders. Most people have it all wrong. They think boundaries are signs they hold up to other people. Please don't talk to me that way. I need you to respect my space. That is a request, not a boundary. That is begging the world to change its behavior so you can feel okay. But the world will not change. People will crash through your polite requests every single day. This is not about controlling what comes out of their mouth. It is about controlling what enters your soul. A true boundary is not a request to the universe. A true boundary is a decision you make about what you will absorb. The toxic colleague can say whatever they want. The boundary is inside you, stating, "I will not metabolize this poison. I will not ruminate on this." You don't need their permission to build a wall. The door to your mind only locks from the inside. The lock is your refusal to react. This concept is best visualized through the ancient analogy of the rock and the wave. Think of a massive granite cliff face rising from the ocean. The waves come crashing in, day and night. Some waves are small ripples, some are 50-foot tsunamis born of a hurricane. The waves slam against the rock with tremendous force. But what happens? The wave is broken. The wave dissolves into froth and mist and retreats back into the sea. And the rock? The rock is exactly as it was. It doesn't have a dent. It didn't fight back. It didn't scream at the wave. It didn't build a giant weapon to vaporize the wave. It simply was. It was solid. It was itself. The wave broke against the rock's immovability. That is the fortress within. You are the rock. The outside event is the wave. Let the wave break itself. The wave is nothing but temporary, frenzied energy. Your solid stillness is permanent. You don't fight the wave, you eliminate the friction. Without friction, the wave passes on its own. You have a choice in how you build this rock-solid identity. The key tool is what modern psychology calls the gray rock method, applied not just to others, but to your own mind. For those dealing with high-conflict personalities, the advice is to become as boring as a gray rock. No emotional spikes, no interesting reactions, no fuel for the fire. We are internalizing this concept. When the provoking thought comes, become a gray rock. The thought says, they are destroying your reputation. You don't engage. You don't argue with the thought. You don't spiral. You just observe, that is a thought. It is a cloud, not the sky. The fortress within is not a place where bad things never happen. It is the place where you are the unshakable observer of the weather, not the weather itself. You watch the storm, but you are not the storm. But let's get practical. How do we reinforce these internal walls when the battering ram of life hits? You use the tool of radical internal division. You draw a line in the sand of your consciousness. On one side of the line is my business. On the other side is not my business. This is the dichotomy of control from Epictetus, weaponized. The economy crashes. Is that your business? No. Your response to the economy is your business. Your partner is in a bad mood. Is the mood your business? No. How you hold your own emotional state is your business. Someone spreads a rumor about you. Is the rumor your business? No. Your reputation is not your property. It is the property of other people's minds, and you cannot manage other people's minds. Your integrity, your actions, your peace, that is your property. By trying to control the not my business column, you become a frustrated, weak, reactive mess. By focusing entirely on the my business column, you become a sovereign. You stop worrying about what the waves are doing. You focus on the rock's internal compass and structural integrity. This requires a brutal mantra. Not my circus. Not my monkeys. That's not just a funny saying. It's a boundary invocation. When you feel yourself being dragged into the chaos of someone else's drama, you repeat it. Not my circus. You are not the ringmaster of their dysfunction. You are not the janitor of their mess. Your compulsion to jump in and fix, react, and soothe is often not about helping them. It's about you needing to calm your own anxiety generated by their chaos. That's enmeshment, not empathy. Cut the cord. Stay in your own circus. Your circus has one animal, your mind. Train it. Don't be a spectator in someone else's. You must understand that the fortress is not a lonely, grim place. This is the mistake people make. They think, if I don't react, if I have these thick walls, I'll be cold and isolated. That is a lie your reactive ego tells you to keep you alive in the drama. The fortress is not cold. It is spacious. It is warm with the fire of your own undistracted presence. Inside the fortress, you finally have room to breathe. You aren't constantly looking over the parapet for incoming arrows. You are sitting in the center, calm and collected, thinking clearly, making wise decisions. You are actually more loving inside the fortress because you are no longer afraid. Fear is the glue of reaction. When the boundaries are up, and you know nothing can touch the core of your peace, you can finally interact with people without tensing up, waiting for the stab. You listen better. You see them truly, instead of seeing a threat. The fortress within is the foundation of genuine connection because it eliminates the fear of losing yourself in another person. So build this place. Visualize it. Feel the walls. When the world gets loud, physically drop your awareness from your head into your chest or your belly, the center of the fortress. Feel the solidity. The battle is outside. The peace is inside. The door only locks from your side. You let the visitor in for tea, or you keep them out in the cold. That is your sovereign right. You are not a public park. You are a private residence. Act like it. Now, you have the fortress. You have the silence. But what about the raw electric charge of anger that still spikes even when the walls are up? That energy is not your enemy. It is a superfuel that you've been burning in a trash can. What if you took that fire and put it into an engine? What if you didn't just kill your rage, but transformed it? The fortress protects you, but the alchemy of emotion propels you. Let's talk about turning poison into power. Chapter 6, Emotional Alchemy, turning insults into fuel. We have built the walls. We have mastered the silence. But there is still a fire in you. When the insult lands, when the disrespect stares you in the face, even the most disciplined mind feels a spike of heat. That heat is pure, raw energy. The Stoics were not dead, emotionless statues. They were masters of energy conversion. They practiced what we will now call emotional alchemy. The untrained person takes the fire of anger and burns themselves with it. They sit there, smoking, letting the fire destroy their internal organs. The master takes that identical fire and uses it to forge steel. An insult is an energy gift from the universe. The question is, are you going to let it burn down your house, or use it to power your city? The physiological reality is this. The chemical surge you feel during anger, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the heightened focus, is almost identical to the chemical surge of massive, determined action. The vibration of "I will destroy them" and "I will succeed despite them" vibrates on the same frequency. The difference is the direction of the vector. One is pointed outward at a target you cannot control, the other person. The other is pointed inward and forward at a target you fully control, your own output. You have a choice. You can't stop the chemical dump. Once the amygdala fires, the fuel is in the tank. But you can choose the steering wheel. You don't need their permission to redirect that fuel. It's not about suppression, it's about transmutation. That's the key. You feel the anger rise. You acknowledge it. You say, "Thank you for the energy," and you immediately reroute it from your mouth to your muscles, from your typing fingers, about to write an angry email, to your creative engine. Let's look at a legendary Stoic example, the story of Cato the Younger. Cato was a Roman senator, famous for his rigid integrity and stoic virtue. One day, a political enemy approached him and spat directly in his face. Let that image sink in. The ultimate physical disrespect. Wet, warm, public humiliation. The animal in Cato probably wanted to rip the man's throat out. What did Cato do? He didn't react. He didn't scream. He didn't punch. He calmly took a handkerchief, wiped his face, and said, "To anyone who claims you have no cheek, I will testify otherwise." A devastating, witty, ice-cold response. But more importantly, what did he do with the anger? He didn't swallow it and get an ulcer. He used the incident to demonstrate such incredible virtue that his reputation skyrocketed far higher than the spitters could ever plummet. The insult became his pedestal. His enemy gave him a gift, the opportunity to showcase absolute mastery. He took the venom and alchemically converted it into a demonstration of power that is still being talked about 2,000 years later. If Cato had thrown a punch, he would have looked like a barbarian. By not reacting and then acting from a place of profound control, he became a legend. You are probably not being spat on in the Roman Senate. But you are experiencing microaggressions, betrayals, and dismissals every week. The person who dismisses your idea in a meeting. The rival who launches a passive-aggressive attack in a group chat. The family member who makes a cutting remark about your life choices. The fire rises. Don't suppress it. That's a lie. That's saying, "I'm not angry," when your blood is boiling. That's spiritual bypassing. Instead, grab the fire and move it. Immediately, within the same hour, go do the hardest thing on your to-do list. Go to the gym and lift something heavy. Open your laptop and write 1,000 words of your book. Make that difficult sales call you've been dreading. Pour the anger into the rep. Put the fury into the prose. Let the "I'll show them" energy drive you. The energy is neutral. Your reaction weaponizes it against yourself, or your non-reaction leverages it for your destiny. The insult becomes the fuel for the empire. Don't waste the fire. This is the command. You are a sleeping dragon, and people are poking you. The foolish dragon burns down the village in a rage. The wise dragon uses the poke to wake up fully, remember its power, and fly higher than it ever has before. The insult is a wake-up call. It reveals where you are weak, where you seek validation, and where you have given away your power. If a comment about your looks destroys you, that shows you are still attaching your worth to your appearance. If a critique of your work sinks you into depression, that shows you are a perfectionist slave to external approval. The insult is a diagnostic tool. It shows you exactly where the fortress walls need reinforcement. Be grateful for the enemy. The enemy is a harsh but honest teacher. The friend who kisses your ego won't make you stronger. The rival who points out your fragility gives you a map to absolute sovereignty. This is the shift from defense to offense. You stop being a reactor, a victim. You become an alchemist. You start to almost welcome difficulty, because difficulty is the raw material of virtue. Without resistance, you cannot build muscle. Without discipline, you cannot practice. You view the difficult person at work not as a curse, but as your personal gym equipment. Every interaction is a rep. You are building an unshakable character, one reaction at a time. The goal is not to get through the day without meeting a jerk. The goal is to meet the jerk and feel gratitude for the opportunity to test your stillness. So feel the heat. That's human. But do not let it evaporate into a complaint or an explosion. Channel it. Take that surge and put it into your art, your body, your bank account. The greatest revenge is not a harsh word. It's a life so well lived, so powerful, that the insulter becomes irrelevant. It's no revenge. Revenge implies they have wounded you. This is transcendence. You rise so far above them that you can't even hear their heckles anymore. The noise fades into the background hum of a world you have outgrown. Emotional alchemy turns your wounds into wisdom and your anger into acceleration. But there is still a phantom in the machine. A ghost that whispers in your ear, you must react. You must defend. Without your reputation, you are nothing. That ghost is the ego, and it is terrified of silence. It is terrified of non-reaction because silence means death to the false self. Let's look this phantom in the eye. The next chapter is about the scream of the self when it realizes you no longer need it. You have learned to turn the fire into fuel. Now, you must endure the death rattle of the part of you that still wants to burn it all down. Chapter 7. The Ego's Death Rattle. Why you feel the urge to prove them wrong. There is a phantom inside you. It wears your face. It speaks with your voice. And it is terrified of this book. It is terrified of the silence you are cultivating. It is terrified that you might actually stop reacting. Because if you stop reacting, the phantom dies. That phantom is your ego. And the agonizing, burning, almost irresistible urge you feel to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, to set the record straight, that is the ego's death rattle. It screams loudest when it is about to be extinguished. And if you don't understand this, you will mistake that scream for your own voice and obey it. The ego is not your friend. It poses as your protector. It tells you, I'm just looking out for your dignity. I'm making sure you get the respect you deserve. But the ego is not interested in your dignity. The ego is a parasite addicted to a specific drug, validation. It needs to be seen. It needs to be right. It needs to be superior. And when someone criticizes you, dismisses you, or overlooks you, the ego goes into withdrawal. The withdrawal is so painful that you will do almost anything to get a hit of that validation back. You will send the angry text. You will post the defensive comment. You will list your accomplishments to a person who doesn't care about you. You will spend hours explaining your position, trying to make them understand. And here is the brutal truth you must swallow. Every time you try to prove yourself to someone who has already dismissed you, you are forfeiting your power. You are kneeling before their throne, holding up your achievements like a beggar, asking, "Please, sir, validate my existence." That is not a strength. That is the pathetic, desperate dance of the ego. You have a choice. You can continue living as a validation addict, constantly scanning the faces of others for signs of approval or disapproval, and adjusting your behavior accordingly. Or you can decide once and for all that your self-worth is a closed-loop system. It is internally generated and externally impervious. This is the definition of Stoic confidence. It needs no applause. It fears no boos. A person with true inner confidence walks into a room not needing anything from anyone. They are not there to extract approval. They are there to give value. The ego-driven person walks into the same room desperate to be liked, terrified of being hated, and therefore manipulated by every subtle social cue. Which one are you? Be honest. Because the ego lies, and it will tell you I'm confident, while simultaneously refreshing the post to see if the likes have gone up. That's the key. The ego says, I don't care, and then monitors obsessively to make sure. True non-reaction says nothing and checks nothing. Let's look at the phenomenon known as tall poppy syndrome. This is a social sickness in which people feel the urge to cut down anyone who stands out, excels, or dares to be different. The tall poppy gets its head lopped off because the field of mediocre poppies cannot tolerate the sight of one rising above. When you are criticized for your success, attacked for your ambition, and dismissed for your growth, understand this: it is not about you. It is about the attacker's mediocrity. They see your light, and it reveals the darkness of their own unfulfilled potential. They can't handle that pain, so they try to extinguish your light. And you, the ego-driven reactor, hand them the extinguisher. You stoop down to their level. You argue with the blade of grass. You explain to the field of poppies why you are allowed to be tall. Stop it. A tall tree doesn't bend down to argue with the blades of grass. It doesn't explain its height. It doesn't apologize for its branches. It just grows. It grows so tall that eventually, the grass can't even see the top. The grass forgets the tree exists. The grass is left arguing with itself, and the tree is already touching the sky. That is your mandate. Grow so tall that the critics become irrelevant. Your results are the only argument that matters. Your silence is the only response they deserve. Defensiveness is an admission of insecurity. Read that again. Every time you defend yourself, you are subtly confirming that the accusation has merit. If a stranger walked up to you on the street and said, "You are a Martian lizard person in disguise," you wouldn't panic and show them your human birth certificate. You would laugh. You would walk away. You wouldn't feel a spike of anxiety. Why? Because the accusation is so absurd, so divorced from reality, that it doesn't threaten your self-concept at all. It doesn't stick. Now, apply this principle to the insults that do stick. The reason an insult hurts is that somewhere deep inside, you fear it might be true, or you fear others might believe it. The defensive reaction is the ego screaming. The accusation is sticking. Panic. Fight back. But if you truly knew who you were, the insult would slide off like rain on a waxed car. You don't need to defend against what you know isn't true. The quiet certainty of your own identity is the ultimate shield. So, how do you kill the ego? You don't. The ego is a survival mechanism. It will be with you as long as you have a body. But you can starve it. You starve it by depriving it of its favorite foods: drama, defensiveness, and validation seeking. Every time you choose not to correct someone who misunderstood you, you starve the ego. Every time someone takes credit for your idea, and you let it go without a fight, you starve the ego. Every time you fail publicly and refuse to make excuses, you starve the ego. It screams. It throws a tantrum. They think you're weak. They think you're incompetent. You have to say something. That scream is the death rattle. It is the sound of the parasite losing its grip. Listen to the scream and smile. Say to yourself, "Ah, there you are, ego. I see you. And I'm not feeding you today." Kill the need to be right, so you can finally be free. This is a radical act of internal surgery. The need to be right is a heavy chain. It weighs down your relationships. It creates arguments that serve no purpose except to boost a fragile self-image. What if you could let someone be wrong about you? What if you could let them believe the false narrative without correcting it? What if your inner peace was more important than your outer reputation? That's the trade-off the ego doesn't want you to see. You can either be right or be free. You can rarely be both. The person who must always be right is a prisoner of every conversation. The free person says, "You might be right," and moves on with a smile, leaving the other person holding the burden of their own error. It's not about letting them win. It's about realizing the game is beneath you. You are playing a different game now, the game of inner sovereignty. Let the ego rattle. Let it scream into the void of your silence. It will eventually exhaust itself. And in the quiet that follows, you will discover something profound. You are not your ego. You are the awareness that watches the ego. You are the one who chooses not to react. The ego is just a noisy tenant in the house of your soul. You are the landlord. You can evict it from the driver's seat. You can put it in the back room with a gag. You are not the screaming phantom. You are the vast, silent sky in which the phantom appears. The ego screams, "Prove them wrong." The Stoic whispers, "My life is my proof." There is a profound difference. One is reactive. The other is generative. One is the death rattle. The other is the birth of freedom. Now, we must go deeper into the mechanism of suffering itself. The ego attaches the I to everything. I was insulted. I was hurt. I am angry. What if we dissolved the I entirely from the experience? What if we moved from being the wounded protagonist to being the silent observer? The ego is noisy, but the observer is silent. Chapter 8, The Observer, Not the Sufferer, Depersonalizing Pain. There is a single word that, more than any other, causes the entirety of human suffering. It is not hate. It is not fear. It is I. I was disrespected. I was hurt. I am under attack. The glue of the self holds the entire drama of the reaction trap together. The ego, as we learned in the last chapter, inserts itself into the center of every event and claims victimhood. In this chapter, we are going to pull the linchpin that holds the whole machine together. We are going to learn the Stoic art of depersonalization. You are going to stop being the sufferer and become the observer. When the I disappears, the suffering vanishes with it. Think of the last time you were deeply upset by an insult. It wasn't just the words. It was the profoundly personal way you took them. You believed, with absolute certainty, that this event was happening to you. It was directed at your core identity. But what if that identity was flexible? What if you could, in an instant, zoom out and see the situation from a completely different perspective? What if you could detach the I from the event? The event is just an event, vibrations in the air, patterns of light, chemical signals in a brain. It is not happening to you, it is just happening, and you are observing it. This is not metaphysical nonsense. This is a trainable cognitive skill that separates the emotionally enslaved from the spiritually free. You have a choice. You can watch the movie of your life from the front row, pressed up against the screen, flinching at every explosion and ducking every bullet. Or you can walk to the back of the theater. You can climb up into the projection booth. From the projection booth, the movie is still playing. The explosions are still happening. But you see them differently now. You see the light beam. You see the flicker of the frames. You see that the monster on the screen is just a pattern of colored photons. You are still witnessing the content, but you are no longer being battered by it. You are the observer, not the character. The character in the movie is still facing dangers. But you, the observer, know the character is just a story. You are the awareness behind the story. That awareness cannot be hurt by the movie. You can't throw a rock at the screen and hit the light beam. You are the light beam, not the screen. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth in his time, practiced a technique he called the view from above. When he felt overwhelmed by the squabbles of the Senate, the betrayals of his generals, or the clamor of Rome, he would mentally zoom out. He would imagine himself rising into the sky, above the city, above the clouds, into the vastness of space. He would look down and see the tiny blue dot. And on that dot, he would see the armies marching, the people arguing, the empires rising and falling. From that height, his personal problems looked exactly like what they were, temporary flickers on a speck of dust suspended in an infinite void. This was not a flight from reality. It was a tactical flight to reality. The true reality is that we are tiny, our time is short, and our dramas are laughably insignificant in the cosmic scale. When you truly internalize that, how seriously can you take an insult? How can a rude comment from a colleague feel catastrophic when you are holding the perspective of the galaxy? Zoom out now. Apply this to your current anger. You are furious about a betrayal. You are replaying the scenario. Your ego is stoking the fire, whispering, "Look what they did to you." Now detach. Zoom out 5 years. Will this argument matter? Zoom out 50 years. Will anyone on Earth remember the names of either of you? Zoom out 100 years. The buildings you're sitting in are dust. The texts you're obsessing over are disintegrated atoms. The entire context of your drama has ceased to exist. And yet, here you are, in this infinitely rare and brief moment of consciousness, spending your precious life force on a grudge that is already cosmically null and void. That is not tragic. That is absurd. And you have the power to laugh at the absurdity and drop it. Detach the I from the event. It is not your possession. It is a passing cloud formation in an atmosphere that existed billions of years before you and will exist billions of years after you. The cloud is not happening to you. It's just happening, and you are the sky. This is the deep, repetitive anchor of this chapter. It's not happening to you. It's just happening, and you are observing it. When you step into the observer consciousness, you are no longer a participant in the drama. You are a journalist. You are a scientist. You see the anger arise, and you note, interesting. There is anger. There is a sensation of heat in the chest. There is a thought pattern of victimization. You don't say, "I am angry." You say, "Anger is present." A tiny shift in phrasing. A seismic shift in identity. The I steps aside. And the anger, without the I to feed it, begins to starve. It is a fire with no fuel. It flickers, it dances its final desperate dance, and then it goes out. You haven't suppressed it. You haven't fought it. You have simply withdrawn the oxygen of your identification. You have starved the beast by refusing to call it mine. The practical application is this. When you feel the reaction rising, you silently narrate your experience in the third person. It sounds strange, but it works instantly. Don't say, "I'm so offended." Say, "He observes that a sensation of offense is arising in this body-mind." Feel the distance that creates. That distance is your salvation. You are creating a buffer between pure consciousness and the biochemical storm. You are no longer in the storm. You are watching the storm from a hermetically sealed observation deck. The storm can rage, but the observer is dry, calm, and untouched. That's the key. You don't need to stop the storm. You just need to get out of the rain. The observer is always dry. This is the death of the victim's identity. The victim must have an I that was wounded. The observer has no I to wound. The victim clings to the past because the past is where the wound lives. The observer lives in the eternal now, where the past is just a pattern of thoughts floating through. You are not your biography. You are not your trauma. You are the awareness witnessing the thought that says, "I am traumatized." When you can witness that thought without believing it, you are free. You are no longer the character in the drama. You are the silent, infinite space in which all dramas arise and dissolve. Take a breath. Feel that space. That is who you really are. Not the reactive animal. Not the defensive ego. Not the wounded child. You are the observer. The vast, silent witness. And from this vantage point, nothing can touch you. The insults are just sounds. The betrayals are just scenes. They appear. They play out. And they vanish into the silence. You remain. From the quiet of the observer, we now understand that we are not the target of the arrows. We are the field in which the arrows land. But there is still one final law to master. A law of energy. The arrows themselves, the provocations, the insults, the dramas, are not just tests of our stillness. They are friction. And friction, by its very nature, stops momentum. What if every reaction was not just a wound, but a break? What if you realized that non-reaction is not just about peace, but about speed? You have become the observer. Now, let's talk about the physics of your destiny. Chapter 9. The Physics of Friction. They want you to be the brake. We have been speaking the language of philosophy and psychology. Now, let's speak the language of physics. Let's talk about energy, momentum, and friction. Your life is a vehicle. It is moving through time and space. You have a finite amount of fuel, that's your attention and your energy. You have a destination, that's your purpose, your calling, your vision of who you want to become. And every single day, you are driving this vehicle toward that destination. You are making progress. You are building momentum. Now imagine that every time someone provokes you, they are throwing a massive brake pad in front of your wheel. The insult, the drama, the chaos, it's all a brake pad. And the moment you react, you slam your foot on that brake. Your precious momentum screeches to a halt. Your engine strains. Your fuel burns wastefully. You go nowhere. The person who provoked you, they've already sped off in their own vehicle, living their life, oblivious to the pile-up they caused in your mind. But you are still there, stopped on the side of the road, examining the damage, screaming at the skid marks. They took 5 seconds to throw the brake pad. You've been stopped for 5 hours, 5 days, 5 years. The physics is undeniable. Reacting is friction. Friction stops momentum. And they, the provocateurs, the haters, the energy vampires, they want you to be the brake. Don't help them stop your car. You have a choice. You can choose a frictionless life, or you can choose a life ground to dust by resistance. This is not about avoiding hard work. Hard work in pursuit of your goals is high friction, but it's productive friction. It's the friction of the engine creating forward motion. The friction of reaction, however, is unproductive. It's the friction of the brake pads grinding against the rotors. It creates nothing but heat, noise, and wear. Every time you engage in drama, you wear down your engine. You lose efficiency. You arrive at your destination later and more exhausted than you should have been. If you want to accelerate your life, you must reduce the friction of reaction to zero. You must become aerodynamic. Let the insults slide off the streamlined body of your consciousness. Watch how fast you move when you stop dragging the dead weight of other people's opinions behind you. Let's talk about resistance. The psychological and spiritual law states, what you resist persists. By fighting against something, an idea, a person, a narrative, you are giving it enormous amounts of your focused energy. You are locking it in place. Think of a Chinese finger trap. The more you pull, the tighter it gets. The only way to escape is to relax, to lean in slightly, and then gently slide out. The same is true for the provocations in your life. The person who attacks your reputation wants you to resist. They want you to launch a counter-campaign. Because your resistance validates their attack, it makes the attack real. It elevates a minor petty squabble into a full-blown war that consumes both armies. When you refuse to resist, when you simply allow their attack to float past without engaging it, the attack has nothing to push against. It collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. What you allow to float past dissolves. What you fight solidifies. Stop solidifying your enemies. Stop giving them form with your resistance. Be the ghost. Let their fists swing through empty air. They exhaust themselves. You remain untouched, and more importantly, you remain in motion. The practical, behavioral mandate is this: keep your foot on the gas. They are a speed bump, not a wall. A speed bump is annoying. It jolts you slightly. But you don't stop the car, get out, and have a 45-minute argument with the speed bump. You don't try to convince the speed bump of your right to drive on the road. You just drive over it. Maybe you slow down a little to process it, but you keep moving. The provocation is the speed bump. The insult is the speed bump. Acknowledge it. A speed bump. And then keep driving. Your purpose is down the road. Your family is down the road. Your masterpiece is down the road. The speed bump offers you nothing. It is a minor imperfection in the pavement, nothing more. But most people treat speed bumps like brick walls. They see the tiny obstacle, they catastrophize it, and they slam the brakes. They abandon the journey. They set up camp right there by the speed bump, telling everyone who passes, "Look what happened to me. Look at this bump. I can't go on because of this bump." The bump didn't stop them. Their choice to stop did. Keep driving. Flow around, flow through, but never stop. Don't let the heckler on the sidewalk stop the vehicle of your evolution. You are a long-distance runner in the marathon of life. The sidelines are lined with hecklers. Some are drunk, some are bitter, some are just bored and throwing insults at anyone who passes. The runner who stops to confront every heckler will never finish the race. The runner who runs in silence, eyes fixed on the finish line, hears the heckles as nothing but a distant, irrelevant hum. The heckles don't slow the runner down. They actually become fuel, proof that the runner is passing them by. The only hecklers worth worrying about are the ones behind you. If you're being heckled from behind, it means you're ahead. Keep running. If they're in front of you, they're competitors. If they're behind you, they're just noise. Your job is to keep the hecklers in your rearview mirror, and you do that by maintaining forward momentum, not by throwing the car in reverse and going back to argue. This is the law of energetic investment. You invest your energy either in your mission or in the obstacles to your mission. You cannot invest in both. Every calorie of emotional energy spent on the obstacle is stolen from the mission. This is a zero-sum game. The hour you spend ruminating on a betrayal is an hour you didn't spend building your business. The afternoon you spend stewing in a perceived slight is an afternoon you didn't spend playing with your children. The weekend you spend plotting a petty revenge is a weekend you didn't spend writing your novel. The obstacle doesn't just hurt you directly, it hurts you through the opportunity cost. The real crime of reaction is not the pain of the reaction itself. It's the masterpieces that never get created because the artist was too busy being angry. Think of the books unwritten, the businesses unlaunched, the loves unexpressed, all because the creator was locked in a battle of ego friction. That is the silent tragedy of an unmastered mind. So here is the command. Feel the friction and immediately recognize it. The feeling of the break is the reaction. When you feel that heat, that urge to stop progress and engage in the drama, say to yourself, friction detected. Brake pad deployed. I am choosing to accelerate instead. And then pivot, instantly, to one single action that moves your life forward. Replace the spell of reaction with the momentum of creation. One phone call. One push-up. One sentence written. One act of love. It doesn't matter how small. It matters that you shifted from brake to accelerator. You reclaimed the momentum. You starved the friction and fed the mission. Your life is a vehicle built for incredible speed and incredible distance. You were not designed to sit in a parking lot of petty grievances, revving your engine and going nowhere. You were designed to fly down the open road of your highest potential. The haters, the critics, the toxic colleagues, they are speed bumps. Drive over them. Drive past them. Let them disappear in the dust of your forward motion. This is the physics of the Stoic path. Stop stopping. Go. And when you go far enough, fast enough, something miraculous happens. You arrive at a state of being where reaction is not even a possibility. It is not suppressed, it is transcended. You become the immovable force. The identity is complete. Let us now step into that final form. You have eliminated friction. Now, step into the permanent, unshakable identity. Chapter 10. The Unshakable Identity, Stepping into the Deep. We have journeyed together through 9 chapters of intense, unrelenting transformation. You have seen the prison of reaction. You have learned the currency of attention. You have closed the judgment gap, weaponized silence, and built the fortress within. You have turned your fire into fuel, starved the screaming ego, and learned to observe pain without becoming it. You have removed the friction from your momentum. All of this has been leading to a single inevitable endpoint: the final metamorphosis. This is not about doing non-reaction anymore. This is about becoming the non-reactive person. It is a permanent shift in identity. You are stepping into the deep. The surface of the ocean is chaos. It is whipped by winds, battered by storms, and tossed by every passing boat. The surface is reactive. A single pebble dropped from a bridge creates ripples that disturb the surface. That is the level where most humans live. They are a surface-level consciousness. Every comment, every glance, every headline, every notification, a pebble, creates a ripple that spreads across their entire being. They live in a constant state of disturbance. Their peace is contingent on the impossible condition that no pebbles fall. But what lies beneath the surface? The deep. The deep ocean is a completely different reality. A 100-foot storm can be raging on the surface, with waves the size of buildings and winds that scream like demons. But descend a few hundred feet, and what do you find? Silence. Stillness. Profound, ancient calm. The deep doesn't know the storm is happening. The deep is unmoved, unshaken, untouched. The temperature is constant. The pressure is steady. The deep is a world unto itself, a realm of quiet power so vast that the storm on the surface is a statistical irrelevance. That is where you are going. You are relocating your identity from the chaotic surface of the reactive ego to the serene, silent, immovable depth of your true self. Chaos lives on the surface. Storms live on the surface. The deep ocean is silent, still, and full of terrifying power. Be the deep. There is no react, there is only be. This is not a metaphor. This is a felt shift in your somatic identity. You can do it right now. Close your eyes if it's safe. Bring your awareness inward. Most of us carry our awareness in our heads, right behind our eyes. That's the surface. That's the radar station constantly scanning for threats. Now, drop your awareness down. Let it sink like a stone through your throat, through your chest, settling deep in the core of your belly, the hara, the dantian, the center of gravity. Feel the weight there. Feel the solidity. That is the deep. From this place, you can still see the surface. You can still observe the thoughts, the emotions, the insults. But you see them from a vast distance. They are happening up there. You are settled down here. Let the storms rage above. You are the silent, dark water that holds the entire ocean in its embrace. You are not a character in the drama. You are the stage. The drama plays upon you, but it does not penetrate you. When you live from the deep, you become a gravitational force. You walk into a room, and people feel something shift. They don't know what it is. You are not loud. You are not domineering. But there is a solidity to your presence. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't flatter. You don't react. You just are. And that isness is magnetic. In a world of frantic, vibrating, reactive people, a single unmoving stone creates a vortex of calm around it. People will bring their chaos to you, hoping for the usual reaction, the usual fuel for their drama. And they will find nothing. Not a cold, hostile nothing. A warm, steady nothing. A void that does not fight back, but does not absorb. They will feel the urge to calm down in your presence, because your nervous system is not matching their chaos. It is broadcasting a frequency of safety and sovereignty. You become the most trusted person in the room because you are the only one not swayed by panic. You become the most powerful person in the room because you cannot be manipulated. The unshakable identity is not about being emotionless. It is about being so rooted in your own being that emotions are allowed to pass through without disturbing the root. You still feel. Oh, you feel deeply. You feel joy, grief, love, and even the initial flash of anger. But the feelings do not possess you. They are guests. You are the host. The reactive person is a hostage to their feelings. The unshakable person is the host of their feelings. A guest arrives. Hello, anger. I see you. You may sit here for a moment. I will listen to what you have to say. And then the guest leaves. It does not take over the house. It does not rearrange the furniture. It does not burn the kitchen down. It visits, and it departs. And the host remains. The host is always there. The identity is not the changing weather of emotion. The identity is the changeless sky. That is the deep. Now, you must embody this identity with daily, ruthless discipline. It will not simply happen because you listen to this audiobook. You must wake up every morning and remind yourself, I am the deep. I am the rock. I am the observer. You must set the intention. Today, the world will try to pull me to the surface. It will throw pebbles. It will send storms. I will witness them all from my center. I will not be moved. And then when the first storm hits, the rude driver, the irritating colleague, the triggering headline, you will catch yourself about to rise to the surface. And you will smile because you caught it. That catching is the victory. You will take a breath, drop back into your belly, and say, ah, there it is. The invitation to chaos. I decline. And you will remain in the deep. You don't need their permission to be this. You don't need a certificate. You don't need an apology from your past. You just decide. Right now. In this moment. You decide to be the unshakable being. The past is a story. The future is a fantasy. The only reality is the deep silent now in which you are choosing your identity. So choose. Stop reacting to prove you exist. Your silence is your proof. Stop reacting to defend your ego. Your stillness is your shield. Stop reacting to fuel your momentum. Your being is the engine. You are not the reaction. You never were. You are the awareness that witnessed the reaction. And that awareness is the ocean. Vast, silent, infinite, and completely free. There is no react. There is only be. Be the deep. Listen to me very closely. This is not a passive audiobook you just listened to. This is a blueprint for absolute psychological sovereignty. We have walked through the prison of reaction, the power of the judgment gap, the brutal necessity of silencing the ego, and the art of becoming the unshakable deep. But knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And if you go back to your life tomorrow and take the bait, if you send the angry text, if you scream in traffic, if you defend yourself to people who are blind to your vision, this meant nothing. So here is the challenge. And this will be hard. For the next 24 hours, I dare you to commit to 0 emotional reactions. Not one. I want you to act as if you are physically mute and emotionally sealed. Watch the looks on people's faces when they throw the spear, and it hits nothing but air. Watch your own mind try to trick you into the argument. Don't take the poison. Don't bite the hook. Just observe. Go now. Enter the arena of the next 24 hours and prove to yourself that you are no longer a puppet. The strings have been cut. Do not react. Stop explaining. Be the immovable force. Do this now.